Okay, so we'll be fabricating a chicken. This is going to be for your Skiz USA or competition. So what we're going to do is we're going to place a sheet pan down. We're going to have a damp towel underneath it. Then we're going to place a cutting board in that sheet pan with another damp towel to secure it. So what's good about this is you want to make sure that any juices from the chicken go into the sheet pan and not onto the working surface. You want to make sure you're wearing gloves at all times while you're doing this. Okay, for the chicken, you're going to fabricate it. What you need to do is you're going to do what we call an airline breast, but what the judges are looking for is that you leave the tender, which I will show you, the tender intact, and also the oysters, the 2 oyster ears. So again, you want to make sure you don't cut through this oyster. You want to make sure you cut around. So it's like a little cavity in here. So you want to make sure when you cut, you're going to cut into it and around and back through it. So I'll show you how that's done. Okay, this is a 1.5 pound, what we call the wog, which means without giblets. So the first thing you're going to want to do, you're going to make sure you're going to use the boning knife, which is going to be the proper knife for this. You're going to cut along the breastbone. This is the kill bone here, right in the center. Okay, so you're going to make sure your knife is sharp. You're going to cut right along the kill bone, not on it, but along the side of it. And then you're going to hit what we call the wishbone. Okay, it'll stop. So you're going to want to go this way. So the wishbone is right here. So you cut both sides. Okay. First thing you should do is probably do one side first. Unless you're comfortable, you can do both sides at the same time. But it's much easier for you to do one side at a time. Remember, you want to make sure you keep the tender intact. So then once you get to that point, you want to begin to use your hands to stretch out the chicken so you can actually see what you're doing. So I'm going to go along the wishbone, which is going to be at this angle, just like that. And then as you can see, you want to start detaching with your knife. Okay, the chicken. Okay, so the whole idea is to not to put as much as to keep as much meat onto the chicken than on the bone. Okay, so we're going to cut right through here, and we're going to continue cutting, as you can see. Okay, now you're going to come to a point where you're going to hit the joint. You're going to see that joint right there. You're going to cut through that, and then again continue cutting, making sure you scrape. You can actually scrape off the meat, just make sure it doesn't fall off. Now you're going to turn it around. Here's where you want to get and start cutting around what we call the giblet, or not the giblet, but the oyster. So you want to run your knife along the bone. Just run it along. Now you're going to go this way. Okay, so you're going to go this way. You're going to find that little cavity and just cut around. Okay, there's a little cavity in there. Okay. So you're going to have to use your knife to kind of prod, look through it, and kind of remove. So then I'm going to go this way. Now I'm going to turn it around this way again, and then I'm going to start to cut around that little cavity. There's a little cavity underneath there. And the whole idea is to keep that oyster intact. So again, this is going to be probably the part that's going to be the most difficult. Just making sure that the oyster is intact. Okay, then you're going to cut through. I want you guys to see it. So there is the oyster. It's intact. Okay. And we want to make sure we get through there. At this point, you could break this little bone. There's a little joint there that you want to break through. Use your finger. And you're going to cut through it. Just like this. Okay. Just make sure you get everything. And we're going to show you that one side. Make sure you get everything off. I'm going to show you what it looks like, and we're going to do the other side as well. Okay, so we've got all of it. So as you can see, here's the little cavity. Here is the oyster that's still intact right here. Okay. Here is the tender. That's still intact, so you want to make sure that, and again, in the competition they're going to probably want you to use it. Okay. So let me just show you, before I go into the second half, what you guys are going to be using on the competition. You're going to be using what we call the airline breast. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to cut off the breast from the thigh and leg area. So make sure you don't take off any meat, just skin only. Okay, we've got that. Okay, here's our tender intact, right in here. Okay, then you're going to take off the wing right here. Okay. So now you have the airline breast that you use for the competition. Now what you want to do is you're going to want to take this part of the skin off for presentation. So just run your knife all the way around, and then you're going to remove that skin, and you may just scrape it. Okay. Just like this. Okay. So then you have this kind of presentation. And of course, I believe they are wanting you to remove the skin, but when you do your fabrication of your chicken, leave it on, so it looks just like that. And then you'll remove it. We'll find out when we get to the competition if they want you to skin on or skin off. Okay, and then these pieces, they're going to have you guys just give them back to them. You're going to be using both pieces. You're going to be doing 2 plate presentations. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the second half so you can see it again. Okay, so once you get that first side, you're going to do the same thing with the second side. As you can see, it's right here. Okay, so then again, we're going to run our knife along the kill bone. This is the kill bone. And again, you want to run it down till you hit the wishbone. I'm going to show you what the wishbone is. Okay, and work the knife very slowly. You're going to run along a bone here. You're going to run it across. And again, the whole idea, you have that joint. You're going to run it through that joint. And then continue cutting. Okay, make sure you get the skin off. So here is the, let me just show you what the wishbone is, if I don't break it. Usually it's so small that it ends up breaking. So I'm going to remove it. And here is the wishbone. Right there. Okay. So that's what you want to basically, you're going to run into that bone and you're going to cut through that. Okay, so then we're just going to continue cutting. Now this is where you're going to have to be careful. Come around. And again, here is that here is the oyster right here. So remember, when you cut, don't cut this way, you got to cut this way to keep it intact. Okay, so get close enough, and then you're going to run your knife. It should go right in to the cavity. As you can see, I'm going in, and then kind of look through there and make sure you go through it, okay? Again, this will be the part you want to make sure that you do correctly. So try not to cut into it. You want to make sure you keep it intact. So I've got it here. And we are going to remove it or from the cavity, and then do your final cut. Okay, so now we've taken off all the meat off the bone, as you can see. Okay, you have your oyster right here, as you can see it. It's intact. Okay, then you're going to again, and then we've got our tender still intact. So then you're going to remove, there's a little bit of skin there, you're just going to remove that. And you want to cut more towards the side of the thigh and the leg. Okay, this is your piece for your competition. You'll cut the wing off. Okay, remember, keep that intact. You need to show that bone right here. Then you're going to run your knife around. And again, be careful. Always make sure your knife is going to be super sharp, because then you'll have nice clean cuts. And then you can just scrape it off. So just kind of scrape. Make sure you get all of it. And then you can pull it off and then cut it off. Okay, and here is your chicken. In some cases, you could actually, and it's up to you, you can take off that little knuckle if you want. So that I would probably use your chef's knife, since it's a lot heavier. But you can probably use your bony knife, where you can just kind of tap it, and then you have this portion here. So it looks just like that. Okay, so that's how you fabricate your chicken.